Good afternoon and welcome to today's episode of NWCR's Removing the Liberal Blindfold for the 7th day of April in the year of our Lord 2025. The Democrats, true to their ways, are trying hard to push their ideals, even though they got thoroughly beaten in the last election. They have kept up with all the same things, like Trump is a dictator or like he is Hitler, and Elon is horrible and bad. And all because they themselves are not in charge, or they are just jealous because they're not the ones who came up with the ideas that are working for America now. Even our liberal judges are going against the law and order right now. From a Western journal comes this one. 250 years ago, Alexander Hamilton told us how to handle these judges. But first, please like and subscribe to these videos and listen to the end so we can grow our network to work hard to save this great nation from the enemies that we have from within. And don't forget to hit the like button. That will help us grow too. And now for the news. Why precisely is a judge in Washington, a district judge no less, allowed to decide what illegal immigrants with alleged gang affiliations who were being detained in Texas are entitled to before they're deported from the country that they've illegally entered? That's what Alexander Hamilton might like to know. Yes, Hamilton might be the one founding father that is okay for Gen Z liberals to like because they can spit verses from My Shot on command. Likely because the hip social studies teacher in high school let them listen to the Hamilton soundtrack for extra credit. But before he was a rapping puppet for Lin-Manuel Miranda's take on revolutionary American history, he was actually writing stuff that didn't involve hip-hop jams with the Marquis de Lafayette. In particular, he was one of the 3 authors of the Federalist Papers, a series of 85 essays that argued in favor of the U.S. Constitution at the time of its ratification. And lo and behold, he has something to say about the kind of activist judges like U.S. District Court Judge James Boasberg, who temporarily blocked the Trump administration from deploying a 1798 law to summarily deport illegal immigrants associated with transnational gangs. In this case, Tren de Aragua, one of the most powerful gangs that's thrived in the power vacuum created by the dysfunctional Maduro government. Quote, given the exigent circumstances that the court has been made aware of this morning, it has been determined that an immediate order is warranted to maintain the status quo until a hearing can be set, unquote. Boasberg, an Obama appointee, said in an order March 15th, according to Fox News. The trouble is, he has no authority to do this. Boasberg continued to block any sort of removal under the Alien Enemies Act by challenging the government to prove why each individual being deported is, in fact, an alien enemy. Quote, before they can be deported, they are entitled to individualized hearings to determine whether the act applies to them at all, unquote, Boasberg wrote in a Monday ruling according to the Miami Herald. Quote, because the named plaintiffs dispute that they are members of the gang, they must not be deported until a court has been able to decide the merits of their challenge, unquote. In fact, it's unclear what Boasberg is doing adjudicating this case at all, given that the aliens in question were apparently detained in Raymondsville, Texas, a cool 1,700 miles from the District of Columbia, or from his district for that matter. The Trump administration has more or less telegraphed its willingness to ignore Boasberg and his ilk to the extent possible and to let the Supreme Court be the final arbiter of the mess. Is this some sort of crisis for the rule of law? Not at all, if one were to read Hamilton's thoughts on the matter. In Federalist number 78, one of the most influential pertaining to the role of the judiciary in the then proposed Constitution, Hamilton wrote that the courts, quote, have neither force nor will, but merely judgment, unquote, and cannot effectuate those judgments on its own. Quote, whoever attentively considers the different departments of power must perceive that in a government in which they are separated from each other, the judiciary, from the nature of its functions, will always be the least dangerous to the political rights of the Constitution, because it will be least in a capacity to annoy or injure them, unquote, Hamilton wrote. He went on, quote, the executive not only dispenses the honors, but holds the sword of the community. The legislature not only commands the purse, but prescribes the rules by which the duties and the rights of every citizen are to be regulated. The judiciary, on the contrary, has no influence over either the sword or the purse, no direction either of strength or of the wealth of the society, and can take no active resolution whatever. It proves incontestably that the judiciary is beyond comparison the weakest of the three departments of power, that can never attack with success either of the other two, and that all possible care is requisite to enable it to defend itself against their attacks. It equally proves that though individual oppression may now and then proceed from the courts of justice, the general liberty of the people can never be endangered from that quarter. I mean, so long as the judiciary remains truly distinct from both legislature and executive, unquote. Naturally, the argument against this would be that Hamilton was writing to a much different world and audience than these United States in the 21st century. This isn't an argument in favor of the anti-Trump forces if one thinks about it too deeply. For example, the fact that Hamilton couldn't have contemplated a world in which jurists would be asked to decide on whether alleged Venezuelan transnational gang members being flown to El Salvador for detention should be returned to the U.S. for a hearing should reflect poorly not on the lack of foresight Hamilton had, but to those who have let America degenerate to such a state in the first place. But those things aren't thought about too deeply, even at the bench level, which is the point here. The Federalist number 78 clearly and concisely stated the limits that the founders imagined for the judiciary. Anyone who alleges original intent that goes beyond that is simply fooling themselves, and the original intent is what matters. For the anti-Trumpers, wondering why the administration's response isn't a crisis of the rule of law by any stretch of the imagination, perhaps should try looking into some Hamilton that isn't my spot. And now we'll remove the liberal blindfold. Democrats are using the bench to make law, and that is not how our system was set up. Boasberg right now has had at least a few cases that pertain to the same kind of things, and that isn't supposed to happen. The judges are assigned cases, and no one judge will get several like Boasberg has. That in itself is something that should be looked into, because he has done things against Trump since Trump came down the golden escalator. Plus, he is a district judge. Anything out of his district, he has no authority over. From the Bible it says, from Proverbs 28, verse 1, the wicked flee when there is no one pursuing, but the righteous are secure as a lion. The Bible tells us what we should be doing. We are being warned, but we are not listening when it comes to illegal immigration and what our district judges are doing. Alexander Hamilton said it best. The judiciary has no influence over either the sword or the purse and can take no active resolution whatsoever. It may be truly said to have neither force nor will, but merely judgment, and must ultimately depend on the aid of the executive arm, even for the efficacy of its judgments. So when we have these rogue judges, and make no mistake, folks, that is all they are, when they are doing things they are, even when they have no authority to do what they are doing outside of their own district. And yet the whole nation is being held hostage by these mindless morons who think they are all powerful. No, they are not. Thank you for watching, and as I will always say, we will not be ruled. NWCR is heard through Conservative Nation Media, or C&M, from behind the silver microphone of freedom with the voice of reason in this increasingly unreasonable world where America always wins. Please subscribe to my video accounts on Rumble and TalkShoe if you want to know what is really going on here in America. We are now doing our radio shows on Podbean on Thursday nights. To keep from only hearing the liberal talking points of doom and gloom, give us a listen. We must start fighting for America's future or there won't be one. The Democrats are our enemies here. Do not doubt me. Have a good day and God bless you all.